Hello and welcome to another standard video here in the Foundations meta. Today I want to try out a Doubling Season deck. This is one of my all-time favorite Magic cards, an enchantment saying if an effect would create one or more tokens under your control, it creates twice that many of those tokens, and the same applies to counters on permanents we control. So counters include +1/+1 counters, but also loyalty counters like we see on our various planeswalkers. Liliana of the Veil with Doubling Season in play would enter the battlefield with 6 loyalty, which is conveniently enough to immediately use the -6 ultimate, separating the opponent's permanents into 2 piles, and the opponent only gets to keep one of them. And another planeswalker that's great with Doubling Season is Liliana Dreadhorde General, which has also been reprinted in Foundations, so we can play this on the following turn, either making a pair of zombie tokens now with a +1, or more importantly use the -9 ultimate, since we'll have 12 loyalty, so still 3 loyalty left over, and then each opponent chooses a permanent they control for each permanent type, and then sacrifices the rest. So our opponent's going to be down to 1 land and 1 creature most likely, and then we can usually take over from there. Then Doubling Season has a few other synergies in the deck, such as the Overlord, assuming we cast it and not impend it, because if we impend it, it would get double the amount of time counters, so that's a bit of a nombo. But if we cast it, then we'll immediately get 2 Everywhere tokens entering tapped, so that can help us ramp, and on turn 3 we can of course still impend it to get to a turn 4 Doubling Season, and maybe a turn 5 Liliana to set up the win. And then we've got a bit of removal to try and survive aggro decks, cut down at 1 mana, and then at 2 mana we've got a split of Anoint with Affliction to exile smaller creatures, very good against the Unstoppable Slasher, or maybe the Heartfire Hero, which would deal damage on the way out. And then we also have a Go for the Throat for larger creatures, and Tear Asunder can be a nice cheap answer to artifacts and enchantments, also very good against the various enchantment creatures that would otherwise come back. And then we can also kick it for 4 total to take out any opposing non-land permanent. And then Up the Beanstalk is great too, since we've got lots of 5 and 6 drops that would draw us additional cards, and especially the curve of Up the Beanstalk into the Green Overlord is quite nice. And then of course Doubling Season and Liliana can trigger it as well. And then I'm also playing the full set of Llanowar Elves, could make the decision of not running any cheap creatures to avoid opposing copies of Cut Down taking them out, but if they actually stick the landing, this can also speed up our curve significantly, maybe allowing us to impend Overlord on turn 2 already, setting up a Doubling Season on turn 3. And then the mana base also has a few cards that synergize with Doubling Season, mainly the Restless Cottage, doubling the number of food tokens we control when it attacks. And then we also have Fountain Port, doubling the number of fish tokens or treasure tokens we might be able to generate, so that can also be very useful in the grindier matchups. And then don't forget, if you have 2 copies of Doubling Season, the doubling effect will apply twice, so now instead of making 1 token, we're making 4 tokens, so the more the merrier. And then rounding out the mana base, lots of basics, so we have a decent split between turn 1 Llanowar Elves and turn 1 Cut Down where needed, and then some other dual lands that will enter untapped in the early turns, also helping things out. So yeah, that's our deck. Now let's jump into some games and see how the deck does. Okay, we're on the draw. Our hand's pretty decent. Turn 1 Cut Down, turn 2 Beanstalk, turn 3 Overlord, turn 4 Doubling Season, so it's all scripted here. Opponent starting with Commercial District makes me think they might be on some sort of Smuggler Surprise combo deck. So I don't think I need Cut Down on 1, so I can afford to play tapped Cottage. Opponent's got the Beanstalk, so yeah. Glad we played it this way. So what do we think of this matchup in general? If our opponent gets to 6 mana, we could be in trouble, but Doubling Season into Dreadhorde General should still be effective. Opponent off to the same start here. But yeah, we're still looking at turn 4 Season, turn 5 Dreadhorde General, which will be able to -9 ultimate. Playing blue as well, so might be more of a Teamer ramp deck. And another Overlord. Okay, hopefully they don't have answers to our enchantments. We'll still draw a card off of it. Tear Asunder also decent here, but yeah, our game plan is clear. Well, let's see if we get to untap. Could still die out of nowhere to Smuggler Surprise with Calamity and either Red Overlord, or there's a dragon as well. Opponent's got a very nice collection of Overlords. 3 mana left. And yeah, they could have a counterspell in hand for all we know. Do not want my Liliana getting countered necessarily. So maybe the play is double Llanowar Elves, and then we can still tear asunder with or without kicker. Yeah, we can give that a try. And Fountain Port also makes double the tokens, so pretty good with Doubling Season. Alright, opponent did have a bounce spell for Doubling Season after all. So I guess we'll respond and make 2 fish tokens. Because yeah, removing the Overlords would not fizzle this town in big enough. So glad we didn't go for Liliana, but now it's going to take us a while to redeploy Doubling Season. Now Overlord cast, so they'll have 2 of those end of turn. Nope, opponent's still impending. So they want to keep up additional mana. I see Roxanne, pretty good 2 here. Yeah, possible our opponent's going to make a bunch of copies of their Meteorite token, and they're just waiting to set that up. I'm still trying Doubling Season, and then I guess I can play a tap land. We'll see what we draw of Beanstalk. Swamp. Yeah, I don't see myself cutting anything down in the near future. We get our own Overlord, and we'll see what happens. Yeah, opponent's gonna copy a bunch of stuff, including our own Doubling Season. That's gonna hurt. Yeah, Doppelgang X equals 3. Copy my Overlord, Doubling Season, and Meteorite. So I guess we get rid of the Meteorite in response, so they don't get to deal 1,000,000 damage. But they still got 24 Everywhere tokens, triple Doubling Season in play. Roxanne can attack. And make 8 Meteorite tokens. Alright, I guess that's still game over here. Yeah, I was hoping we could untap and then Dreadhorde General to reset the board. But the Roxanne attack is still quite devastating with triple Doubling Season, getting 8 Meteorites. So that should be enough for lethal, or at least close to it. 3 triggers finish off the Overlord, 2 the fish, 3 go face. I guess we're still at 3. So the game's not over yet. And go for the throat was actually a great draw. So play a Dreadhorde General. And then I'll still be able to go for the throat their leftover creature. So they get to keep 1 enchantment, 1 creature, 1 land, and I guess 1 artifact. Alright, and then immediately gonna answer Roxanne. So this doesn't make double the mana. And then sure, we'll hit for 1. So their opponent's now reduced to 2 mana after having over 40 mana basically. Although we are at 3, so can't feel too comfortable. They do still control Doubling Season as well. Fires of Victory sadly finishes off our Planeswalker. But Overlord still good with Doubling Season and Beanstalk. Can also use Fountain Port to draw. And look for additional Planeswalkers. Yeah, that might be better than losing a life to make fish tokens. Although it is an option. Yeah, I think for now I'll just hit for 1. And then Cottage could also be a way of gaining a life. Because the problem now is if our opponent casts another Doppelgang with Doubling Season, this meteorite could be lethal. So that's kind of terrifying. Going to 2 could be bad if they have Burst Lightning. I think I still try it. Or we could sack an Everywhere token to draw, which is maybe still better. Opponent's at 18. If I make 2 fish tokens, that would put them on a 2-turn clock, but we also have Cottage, which can help out. Losing to a Burst Lightning would be kind of sad after all that. So, yeah, let's just draw. Find an elf. And a land. So, yeah, I think we're just animating the Cottage here. And then elves can attack as well. At this point, I don't think it matters. And then I can still play an elf and keep up food token activations and fountain ports. Can our opponent hardcast another Roxanne? Or is this a Doppelgang? A Roaring Furnace. That's fine, only goes to creatures. So now we might be back on the fish token plan. Although it would still be sketchy in the face of a Burst Lightning, since I would put myself to 2 to make fish tokens. And I don't have enough mana to sack food and make fish. But in combination with Cottage, we would present a lethal, although at this point we can expect our opponent to maybe have more removal in hand as well. So I'm gonna play it safe. Sack the food. Make sure we gain 3. And then Fountain Port can sack to draw. Cut down, so still no additional Planeswalker here. So now what? If I animate Cottage, it could die to another Fires of Victory, but I think we gotta try. It looks like they have the fires. Okay, so we'll tap it for mana then. Activate Fountain Port to make fish tokens, or we can draw sacking an Everywhere token, which is also an option. Because yeah, I'm probably going to need to draw another win condition. I don't think we'll win the game just with fish tokens, even 2 per turn. And then let's tap properly. Another land. Alright, so it's not quite happening for us. I'll attack. But now Doppelgang and Roxanne could be very deadly. Overlord making double the tokens as well. That's a pretty good play. So this might be our last chance to top deck something. Another cut down. Alright, I think it's Fountain Port or bust. Again, making fish tokens is probably not going to be enough if our opponent has another Doppelgang or Roxanne. The game's all over. Find an Overlord, at least that's a redraw with Beanstalk. Can still cast a Liliana, and there we have it. Liliana number 2. Is that gonna save us here? Still possible our opponents got this town in big enough to bounce Doubling Season in response, but they didn't respond to the Overlord at least. So we'll still give this a try. And yeah, looks like they're bouncing the Doubling Season. Yep, bouncing the Furnace back as well. Well, we still have a Liliana in play at least. But now our opponent could still win the game with another Doppelgang. This has been an incredible game regardless of the outcome. In hindsight, wish I maybe hadn't played around Burst Lightning and just made the fish tokens. But a teamer deck to compete in the current best of one meta needs to have a little bit of cheap interaction, and Burst Lightning makes a lot of sense in a ramp deck. So double Meteorite token goes after Liliana. And a zombie. I would love for them to take out my creatures so I can draw. Alright, so we're at 4. Liliana draws. Do they have a follow-up Roxanne perhaps to just win right now?
Time to get my hands dirty.
More Doubling Seasons, more than we can handle here. So let's say we start with a -4. That would clear a path for the Overlord to be lethal, so then we might see a response. We would draw 2 as well. This town ain't big enough, bounce Roxanne. Bounce Overlord. We draw 2. So now I need them not to have a 3rd. This town ain't big enough.
Time to wake up and smell the decay.
Let's see, do I have the mana to play another Doubling Season? I do. So we have double Doubling Season. And then we can play another Dreadhorde General. And even a bounce spell wouldn't be enough to stop us. So we get to do this all over again. A counterspell would be sad now, since we only have 1 mana left, but nope. Liliana resolves. 24 loyalty. And a -9 still leaves us at 15. So yeah, we've been here before. We're at 4 life. So could still die to burn spells, but they're not firing off anything in response. Alright, gotta discard 4 to hand size. It's not gonna be a problem. Okay, so let's see what happens. Cavern names Cat. They can replay Furnace to damage Liliana. Fires a victory. Leaves us at 9 loyalty, so I could ultimate again, but it wouldn't do much besides just take out 1 land. So instead, we're gonna make lots of zombies. Double with Doubling Season times 2 is 4 zombies. And then maybe should have actually cast another one first. You have to be a bit mindful of how many cards are left, but that shouldn't be a huge problem. Start here. And then Liliana of the Veil could split up their permanents and still have some leftover loyalty. I guess I'll Doubling Season now. But yeah, opponent's at 4 life, so 4 zombies is plenty. And now Terra Sunder, finally an answer to the Doubling Season as well. So yeah, we should have this now. Liliana can come down. How many ultimates have we fired off this game? Target our opponents. And that's finally gonna prompt a concession. Wow. Well, if you liked this game, make sure to like the video, because I certainly did. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the play. Hand seems fine. We've got early cut down, a Liliana on 3, and maybe Overlord ramping out the Dreadhorde General. We'll need another green source. Opponent blue-white. And might be control. Sadly, don't have the turn 2 up the Beanstalk, which would be awesome here. I think I'll start with Liliana of the Veil, especially now with drawing another one. since I would rather resolve the Overlord if they counter it here. Cut down, we're happy to discard. Opponent did have the Phantom Interference. Now opt maybe to hit their land drop for turn, which they found. And a Founding, so might still be an Oculus deck after all. Starts by milling 4. Okay, so if I impend the Overlord, next turn I can cast Doubling Season. And that would set up some powerful things. So now I'm mostly hoping they don't have more counter spells or enchantment removal. Opponent getting back 3 steps ahead to maybe draw and discard. Alright, so coast is clear for Doubling Season. Although possible they have a Get Lost to destroy our enchantment. Oculus goes to the graveyard. And I could even resolve a Dreadhorde General, but it wouldn't be with double the loyalty. So let's have some fun. And then just gotta dodge Get Lost or some other bounce spell. Into the Floodmaw could also bounce our Doubling Season. But our opponent likely wants to get a threat on the battlefield. And then, if we're afraid of a counterspell, we can start with Liliana, the 3-mana version, which can also ultimate. Soul Partition or Doubling Season, that's too bad. Alright, so cut down the face down card, Liliana gets rid of Oculus. And then I'll have to redeploy the Doubling Season for 7 mana now.
Off you go.
At least Overlord is close to seeing some action. And a Helping Hand gets Oculus back once again. And recommission a second copy. Okay. So Liliana's -4 is not looking great. So we really do need Doubling Season. And then any point in plussing Liliana? I mean, I guess I could. Although playing the lands lets me cast Dreadhorde General and potentially pay for a Phantom Interference. So, yeah, I'll just play the land out. And then hope to survive one more turn. Although their opponent does get to keep an Oculus in play. Turns out they had a Prankster. Still at 12.
Oh, that's my cue to leave.
So I can maybe start by attacking with Overlord. In case they end up bouncing the Doubling Season, although it's not gonna make a difference since we're dead if they have any relevant interaction here. Opponent triple blocks. And flips Oculus face up. Sure. So now they're tapped out, and then Dreadhorde General will leave them with 1 creature and 1 land.
If I were you.
Although, as we've said, 1 Oculus can still easily win them the game. If only we had Liliana of the Veil as a follow-up here. Helping Hand back Oculus again. Yep. So I'll take another Dreadhorde General.
My army has been destroyed.
Alright, Liliana of the Veil, so can split up their permanents. And then what's our choice? So Oculus probably needs to go in separate piles. And then, I mean, I guess we'll just split one of each. And then they'll keep the 6/6 Oculus. Or do I give them something extra with Oculus in the hopes that I can maybe cast another Dreadhorde General, and then it can actually wipe the board if they only have 2 creatures left? Yeah, I think splitting things in half is probably just a correct play here. They literally have 2 of each permanent, the only difference is the +1 counter. I guess we could have decided between the 2 face-down cards. So we need to top deck again. And what's it gonna be? Dreadhorde General, I cannot believe it. Although, does it even win me the game? I don't think it does, because their opponent can just keep the Oculus. So, wow. For being a great top deck, it didn't actually win the game. So that's where we could have maybe figured out a way to give them an extra land and 1 fewer face-down card, so that we can actually have a more successful -4. But our opponent's just going to keep Oculus. And yeah, that's the difference between an actual board wipe and a pseudo board wipe. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the play with a promising hand. Got early interaction, Beanstalk for draw, and then, most importantly, our Doubling Season to go off. Can wait on the Ladder Elves and play Beanstalk while it resolves. And then Elves will still help ramping to Doubling Season on time. Also, if we play the Elves and our opponent had a cut down in hand, we just end up giving the opponent an opportunity to spend their mana. Opponent flashes in a Drowner, so we'll tap down the Elves, and it will be stunned next turn as well. Can still respond here with removal on the Drowner. It's probably okay. And then next turn, at the very least, I can activate Fountain Port. And they're gonna cut down the Elf now. Still casting Doubling Season will draw off up the Beanstalk, so that gives us a late game advantage. For now, make a fish. And then a fish can attack. And see if we get to resolve Doubling Season. Would be a nice curve, a Doubling Season into Liliana Dreadhorde General. Alright, that resolves, so we can now also double the fish tokens potentially. Opponent's got Curiosity to draw. Could have been a reason to keep the fish token back. Opponent also could have been tempted to flash it in as a blocker for the fish, so it sort of implies that they have other things they can play at instant speed, that they wanted to keep the flexibility. So yeah, instead of tapping out for Liliana, I kind of like playing it slow now, since we have Fountain Port plus Doubling Season to pull us ahead, and a bunch of removal, so we can wait for a better window to resolve Liliana. Drowner is going to try and tap something down. Sadly, Anoint is not going to be able to exile the Curiosity, since we're not a poison deck. But we do have Terra Sunder as a great solution to it. So for now, activate Fountain Port. See if we get 2 fish tokens. Also just noticed Lanor Elves gets 2 stun counters from the Drowner because of her own Doubling Season, so that's a bit of a nombo. And then I could just trade for 1 jump with another. And let the trade happen. And our opponent's gonna cut down the fish. Fair enough. They're still keeping up 4 mana. Draw another cut down. Well, I can just run it back. If we had a second high impact card to resolve, I would maybe be tempted to tap out. Could also make a pair of treasures, which maybe helps me play Liliana past a conditional counterspell, like perhaps the 2 mana one. Yeah, let them draw 1. Siren's fine. So I'll make 2 treasures. Can still cut down the Siren, could have started there as well, but if this baits out a counterspell, I'm happy. And now Liliana of the Veil is a must counter. Sadly, I cannot cast it alongside the Dreadhorde General, which would be kind of the 1-2 punch. But yeah, still seems worth it, can still activate Fountain Port. Opponent does try the interference. So yeah, we can pay 2. And then I guess I may as well tap Fountain Port now. And another one, alright, we'll pay for it, so the treasure token's coming in handy. -6. And then how do we spread things out? So the black mana we can maybe separate from the other lanes, and then if they want to keep black mana, then they don't get to keep the Curiosity. And then I guess we'll throw in a map token separate from the Curiosity itself. Something along these lines. So our opponent keeps the creature. Now if they draw Island or Swamp, they can enable the Verge, so that happened. But at least they lost their creature land. Mockingbird, X equals 3, will copy the Curiosity, but now the coast is clear for Dreadhorde General. So we kind of got our wish. Although we still need to find an answer to the Curiosity here. So now the Elves is active, can play another Beanstalk first. And then Liliana will draw 2. Alright, Terra Sunder will be the perfect answer next turn.
My army will envelop.
I think -9 is the way to go. Or we could -4. Just get rid of both creatures. They get some enchantments. Yeah, you know what? That's probably the safer play.
No way but mine. Don't speak ill of the undead.
And then our opponent's got a Mockingbird enchantment. Don't see that every day. But yeah, Terra Sunder is the perfect answer to Enduring Curiosity. Now Liliana wants to start making zombies. Can play another Liliana of the Veil.
Than slaying demons.
Ultimate again.
I'll have this fight finished before brunch. I'll be back with
Could do lanes versus non-lanes. Opponent's gonna flash in the Mastermind first. So, yeah, I kind of like doing lands versus non-lands, since we have a bunch more removal in hand. Opponent's likely keeping the non-lands. Yep, and then can just do this now. Alright, opponent's board is looking nice and clean. And that'll do it. Awesome. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the draw. Hand seems fine. Got some early interaction and then Overlord ramping out Liliana. I'll keep up Cut Down. We'll see what 2-drop our opponent has. Manifold Mouse. Yeah, I think we'll just take out the Double Striker here. And then just take one. Play tap land. And then next turn we can decide between Overlord and Liliana of the Veil. Another Manifold Mouse. Yeah, probably need to go for Liliana of the Veil now, since we're already taking 4. Next turn we can do it again.
And you think you can win?
Can hope they attack Liliana, so it can soak up some more damage. Ooh, Screaming Nemesis, that's scary. Opponent does finish off Liliana. Anoint, that's a good answer to the Nemesis or to the Heartfire hero. Because if I play Liliana, our opponent sacks the hero, we take 2 damage. Although, if I wait, I'm most likely more interested in exiling the Nemesis. So, yeah, it's kind of a tricky spot. Next turn it would be better to hardcast Overlord as well, but I don't want Overlord to block the Nemesis. So I think the plan is just Anoint with Affliction the Nemesis anyway, and then next turn cast Overlord and hope to block the hero. Opponent's got another Nemesis. Well, that's going to complicate matters. We're taking 5, and next turn at least another 5, even if we block Heartfire. But this does set up Dreadhorde General for next turn. But I'm most likely dead to another burn spell or 2. Another Nemesis. Yeah, that's lethal. Take 6 and then 2 more from Heartfire, so don't think there's any realistic sequence that saves me here, unfortunately. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the play with a fine hand. Lanor Elves for ramp, Beanstalk for card advantage. Hoping to find the Green Overlord especially. Opponent's got the same start. So we could already minus Liliana, don't hate that, to slow the opponent down. Pretty rare for us to have a turn 2 Liliana, because you need both elves and a black-green dual land, plus another black source. It's gonna be a Bloomkin next. Okay, so probably gonna lose Liliana here. Still wanna maybe leave black mana available in case we draw Cut Down, but don't want to play land yet in case we draw tap land, like the Cottage. Alright, we've got Doubling Season for next turn, so we can curve Doubling Season into Dreadhorde General, assuming we draw another land here, and with Beanstalk that should be feasible. Liliana down. And there's the Cottage. Still gonna play the Doubling Season here, hoping they don't have an answer. And we've got land 6 at the ready. Now they will still get to keep 1 creature, and I guess now 1 enchantment, so Dreadhorde General's mostly a way to destroy 3 lands. Still pretty good. And then we have another Liliana to follow up, plus we'll get to draw here.
This isn't your average zombie. Impressed? I do quite enjoy necromancy.
So we set them back a bit, and now I guess the Bloomkin also shrinks down because they only have 2 forests. So we actually get to plus Liliana before playing another one.
That's no way to treat a lady.
Another Bloomkin. And another Doubling Season. So this is plussing. I don't actually hate Liliana -4 here. And yeah, also making double the zombie tokens is just going to be too much for the opponent to overcome. Awesome, on to the next one. Okay, we're on the play. Our hand looks like a control hand, all spot removal. No real proactive ramp or card draw. There are matchups where this hand could work out. Mono red aggro, some aura decks. But I'll still take a mulligan. Alright, this is a bit more balanced. Sadly, have to get rid of one card. Might be a land. Can make it forest. Keep cut down for interaction. Beanstalk for a late game. And a paw patch. So this a rabbit deck, presumably. Can wait on Beanstalk for now. Answer the recruits. And then still probably play Fountain Port, even though I could draw into a tap land. Alright, play the elves. So we're on our way to 6 mana. And a Patchwork Banner is next. That's fine. This turn I think I would rather just make a fish, as opposed to just attack for 1. And then we would love another untapped land next turn. Season of the Burrow making 5 1/1s, which will be 2/2 thanks to the banner. Yeah, that's pretty good. So the -4 from Liliana, not looking great. Probably more interested in making a zombie. So at that point, I'm better off maybe cutting down a token as opposed to making a fish. Perfect. Doubling Season, draws a card. Now another Season of the Burrow could answer our enchantment, but if they don't, Liliana can ultimate. They would still get to keep their banner. Speaking of banners, that's a lethal attack. Well, that was highly unexpected, but yeah, still cool to see, I guess. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the play. We've got a hand that just needs a second green source for the Overlord. Double Terra Sunder can be awkward if our opponent's not on a bunch of enchantments, but I'll try it. The hope is up the Beanstalk, draws into green mana, and then we're off to the races. And kicking Terra Sunder is still valid. Alright, let's see if we get there. Alanor Elves is still okay. Can maybe hardcast the Overlord. And Chart of Course, so it does look like another Oculus deck. And they already discarded the namesake card. Okay, so Alanor Elves it is. At least exiling Oculus with a kicked Terra Sunder means it's not gonna come back a second time. Founding. Maybe playing a free recommission here. Nope, Chart of Course, so they may not have the reanimation effect yet. Or they've got a helping hand coming up. Discards another Oculus. And we get to untap. Anoint, also decent answer to the Oculus. So we have options. Could just get rid of the Founding before they get to mill. I think I just get the Overlord going, keep up black mana in case we draw land. Another Overlord. Alright, so not quite what we were hoping for, but at least our opponent's not off to the fastest start either. And we have some nice answers. Mill 4, there we see Helping Hand. Prankster keeps digging. Mills a bunch of creatures now. and another Founding, so they can definitely line those up to eventually get back a Helping Hand. Opponent starts from Chapter 1, and now Soul Partition goes for Overlord, that's fine. Okay, so I can just cast an Overlord now. And then this goes to Chapter 3, probably going for Helping Hand, get back a creature. But then I can just deal with it once it's in play. Yeah, that seems reasonable, since it actually puts a threat in play. And then I don't think we need to keep up Cut Down. And then we're going to be in a spot where we can cast multiple removal spells in the same turn. So we can hopefully overpower their threats. Would have been nice to keep up, let's say, Annoyance to exile Oculus before they get to Manifest Dread, but Cut Down can maybe take care of the 2-2. Opponent found a bounce spell. Yeah, they've gone through half of their deck already. So, Manifest Dread. Can go ahead and attack first. Opponent's gonna bounce, so they're down to 1 mana. So unlikely to see much interaction. And then exiling the Oculus is not a bad idea, although they've got plenty more coming up. So it's unlikely to really matter. And then looking at their graveyard, they don't actually have any other reanimation effects coming up to get back with Founding. So I'm not in a hurry to get rid of the Founding itself with Terra Sunder. And instead I can just recast an Overlord, draw off Beanstalk. And then eventually we'll find one of our Planeswalkers as well. Soul Partition my Overlord again. Still drew me a card and made an Everywhere token, so that's kind of a losing battle. And now Haughty Djinn. Still need to be careful, because these can present quite a bit of damage, and then Helping Hand as well. Alright, opponent's got 2 threats now. And we'll let them Manifest Dread. Unlikely to find too many other creatures, since they've milled most of them. So, yeah, I'm gonna assume that just dealing with the 2 creatures is gonna be most of our turn. And then I can play another elf. So our opponent's empty-handed. We still have a bunch of Overlords, but we are now out of removal. Opponent looks at the graveyard, so they might have found another... Ooh, wow, they actually managed to Manifest Dread into an Oculus and recommission a second one. Wow. Opponent went from no real threats to double Oculus out of nowhere. So yeah, this game took a turn for the worse. At least they had to mill a Helping Hand and a recommission. Cut down the draw. So we need some good top decks here. And let's see. I think we start by just casting the Overlord. Alright, Dreadhorde Generals, decent. I can cast it and cut down, basically leaving them with a single Oculus. And then I would draw off Beanstalk again. And off my 2 elves dying as well. So, yeah, I don't think it matters which of the face-down cards we target. Seems kind of random. Alright, so we're still facing a 6/6 Oculus. But we should draw some more answers here. There we go, Doubling Season plus Liliana of the Veil. Now that still doesn't necessarily answer the Oculus, but it could answer everything else. I imagine our opponent still takes out the General. No, goes face. Okay. Gets to Manifest Dread. And another General. Alright, so we should be able to figure it out here. So Doubling Season for starters. And then I imagine we just Liliana of the Veil, split literally everything in one pile and Oculus in another. Kind of expect him to keep the Oculus. And then another Liliana of the Veil can finish it off. Alright, never mind. Opponents just got rid of the Oculus. So sadly didn't quite get to clean out their entire board. But we should still be in great shape, as we've got another Liliana of the Veil to follow up. And now we can maybe split things more equally. So maybe creatures and can give him one land, or just nothing, and then lands versus non-lands. I mean, at this point, Helping Hand, they've seen most of those. There might be one left in the deck. So yeah, one land versus no lands probably doesn't make a huge difference. Yeah. Could still die if this face down card is a Haughty Djinn, so that's why getting rid of the lands prevents them from flipping it face up. And our opponent actually had a Haughty Djinn as the face down card, so if we gave them enough lands plus the face down card, they could have still killed us. So despite ultimating multiple Lilianas, our opponent still ended up being very close to winning. So it kind of shows the resilience of the Oculus deck as well. But yeah, I'm glad we still got to combo the opponent off in the end. Alright, so we got to see our Doubling Liliana's deck in action, and this deck was a ton of fun to play. We pretty much got to do it all, doubling our Planeswalker's loyalty on several occasions to immediately set up their ultimate. But of course it's not going to be the most competitive choice in the current ranked ladder, since it can be a little slow to set up. Playing a 5-mana enchantment that doesn't always have an immediate impact is questionable, but when it all lines up, it's a lot of fun, as we've seen. So yeah, that's going to do it for today's gameplay. Want to thank you for watching, hope you enjoyed, and as always, have a nice day.